Hello, I'm Dr. Alberto Villoldo, and I'm going to take you into a journey of the world of the shaman. The shamans were the first technicians of the sacred. They understood the workings of heaven and earth. They understood the workings of the world of medicine in a way that we're just beginning to glimpse today with modern physics. For many years, I traveled among the medicine people of the Amazon and the Andes, studying them, learning from them, first as a medical anthropologist and later as a student of the shamans. Before that, I was in a laboratory at San Francisco State University studying the human brain. We were trying to understand how we create psychosomatic health and disease. We knew that we could create psychosomatic disease, but could we also create psychosomatic health? And I remember one day we had been studying the human brain, slicing it and dicing it and staining it and putting it under the microscope. And I realized that I was looking out of the wrong end of the microscope. I had to look to a culture and to a people that had a different worldview from ours, that didn't want to go smaller and smaller, but that went bigger and bigger, even to a notion of time and space that was different from ours. So I shut down my laboratory, I packed my bags, and I went off into the Amazon rainforest to work with people that only had the ability of the mind and of their plant medicine to heal the body and to maintain extraordinary health. At the beginning, I was taking notes and filming and documenting until eventually I became a student of the shamans. I remember one old medicine woman saying to me, Alberto, the first thing that we have to heal is your ignorance. And I said to her, what do you mean, my ignorance? I'm a doctor. It's Dr. Alberto. And she said, no, you have a lot of information, but you have very little wisdom. So we have to heal your ignorance. Later, I understood that the shamans of the Amazon and around the world, because I eventually studied the shamans in Africa, the shamans in Indonesia, in the jungles of the Caribbean, in Brazil, and in the Andean highlands of Peru. And I understood that for the shaman, there's a difference between information and wisdom. That information is being able to tell that water is H2O, but wisdom is being able to make it rain. Information is having a diagnosis, is having an understanding of why you're sick and how you're sick, but wisdom had to do with being able to heal. Wisdom was an act of power. Information was an accumulation of facts that tended to be very disempowering, in effect. Once you have a diagnosis, we're terrified. We live in fear. And we run to the doctors that can offer us surgery or medication, but that don't have the ability to help us heal naturally by ourselves. And this is what the shaman does. Now, today we live in the age of modern medicine, and modern medicine is fantastic. So that if you get bit by a snake, you don't want to go and see your shaman. You want to go into the emergency room. But afterwards, you want to go see your shaman to find out why the snake bit you in the first place. So we have a tradition in the West that is analytic, reductionistic, that puts everything under the microscope, but we forget the big picture. And this is what the shamans have always had. They've had an understanding of the workings of heaven and earth, so that before you could understand the workings of a blade of grass, you had to understand the workings of the cosmos. In contrast, in the West, before we understand the workings of the cosmos, we have to understand the workings of a blade of grass. How a blade of grass turns sunlight into life, how chlorophyll works, how the roots bring up nutrients from inside the earth. And then perhaps when we understand the very small, we can understand the very big. Ours is a very masculine approach. The shamanic, the ancient medicine is a very feminine approach. Ours focuses on killing, burning, and cutting conditions in the body. That's how we treat cancer. The first thing we try to do is to cut it out. And if that doesn't work, then we try to burn it out. And if that doesn't work, then we try to poison it. This is not how shamanic energy medicine works. Shamanic energy medicine is based on the understanding that if you create the conditions for health, that disease then simply goes away by itself. That health is the side effect of the lifestyle that you live, of your connection to nature, of what you put into your body, of how you pray, of how you forgive, of the beliefs that you have, that the universe inevitably proves you right. Remember that every belief that we hold is a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that the universe will always prove you right. Unfortunately, today we have a set of collective beliefs that tell us exactly how we're going to die. That 30% of us will die from cancer, 29% from heart disease. That if you live to be 85 years old, that you will have a 50% chance of having diagnosable Alzheimer's. This is a set of collective belief structures that are true and that are real for people who do not dream their world into being. And this is what I train my students in doing, that we can dream our health into being, that we can dream our world into being, that we do not have to become a statistic, that you only become a statistic when you don't take responsibility for your own dream. And this is what the ancient shamans learned to do 50,000 years ago. So this is not a new tradition. This is a very ancient wisdom tradition that today we're able to merge with cutting-edge brain science, with the latest understanding of physics. Because the shamans were very careful observers of nature. Shamans have been concerned with healing the body and the mind for millennia. They understood that the body needs help, that there are times that you fall, that you're bit by a snake, that you become sick. And they were first and foremost, they were healers. They were interested in healing disease, but even more important than healing disease, they were concerned with how you could prevent disease in the first place, so you would not have to intervene with a sick body. So they were masters of prevention, and they prevented disease by clearing the imprints of disease from the luminous energy field that surrounds the physical body. We're going to learn that we have an energy field that is an information field that determines how you will age, how you will heal, how you will become sick, how you will die. And that we can upgrade the quality of this information field so that we don't have to live out the illnesses and the family dramas and the lack of self-esteem and the sense of scarcity and the fear that our parents lived in. That we can upgrade the quality of this field so we can begin to write an authentic life story for ourselves and not simply spend our lives fixing the genetics that we inherited from our family or the family dramas that we grew up in. That we can write a truly original story. But to do this, we have to erase the old stories. We have to clear the imprints that we were born with. Now, we understand what these stories are psychologically, but understanding where your sense of scarcity or low self-esteem or predisposition to heart disease, understanding where this comes from will not allow you to fix it. This is simply information. This is not wisdom. The the shamanic wisdom of upgrading the contents and the quality of your luminous energy field. That's wisdom. So it's helpful to think of the energy field as the software that informs the body, that informs our DNA. Because our DNA is the hardware. What it does is to manufacture proteins. This is the only thing that DNA does. And it follows the instructions from the software. So if you can imagine yourself downloading version 7.1 of the software, upgrading the quality of the field so that you could then upgrade the quality of the body. So you could then create a body that ages differently, that heals differently, and that dies differently. This is the medicine of the future. The medicine of the future is not pharmacology. It's not pharmaceuticals. In fact, we're living in what I call the age of Pharmageddon, where the great pharmaceutical companies, big pharma, is poisoning us. The future of health is energy medicine. It's upgrading the quality of your field so that you can create health. And that way you do not have to treat disease. We're going to see in the next decade governments becoming bankrupt because they offer free medical services. We don't have the resources to be able to keep this going for much longer because we are exposed today to toxins that never existed in the time of the shamans, that never existed 100 years ago. We're exposed to over 70,000 environmental toxins that never existed before. And I remember when I was a child and the thermometer broke, playing with the mercury in the thermometer. And mercury is a neurotoxin. And then later on, when I needed dental fillings, my dentist put mercury amalgams in my mouth, which leach into the bloodstream. So today we're being exposed to poisons that never existed before. And the shamans of old learned how to eliminate these toxins from the body by unleashing the body's self-healing mechanisms that have become stuck. They've been stuck. We no longer detoxify the body. And we are, in effect, becoming toxic waste dumps. Energy medicine can address this. And this is the healing practice of tomorrow. Because we have exhausted our antibiotic medical weapons. Already we have bacteria that are resistant to every conceivable antibiotic. So the way of the future is to not burn, kill, poison, fight the bacteria, but to come into right relationship with all of nature. So for example, for the shaman, there's no difference between being killed by a jaguar and being killed by a microbe. For us, being killed by a jaguar is bad luck, and being killed by a microbe is an illness. For the shaman, they are exactly the same thing. You have to be in right relationship with jaguars and with microbes. Otherwise, they're both going to be looking at you as lunch. So the shamans of old set about discovering how to heal the body and discovering that prevention is even better than healing. You avoided the onset of disease. But they discovered that the main downside to being sick was that you died. If you didn't die or become crippled, then being sick would be all right. You would be ill for a week or 2 weeks and then recover your health. But the problem with being sick is that it would end your life. And you didn't want to end your life through sickness. You wanted to die naturally. So they not only set about discovering how to heal disease, they set about studying and discovering how to heal death. How do you heal death itself? How do you escape from the grip of death? And they realized that death only happened within time, that death stalked us inside of time. And what death did was to make us run out of time. Our time has ended. So they set about learning how to break free from time itself. How do you step into timelessness where death does not live or lurk? And they learned how to break free from the river of time. So the way that they did this was that they discovered that we have not only 7 chakras in the physical body, but that we have an 8th chakra that is outside the body, that is right above the head. And this is the glow, the radiance that you see around the Buddha and that you see around the Christ. This radiant sun around their heads or above their heads. And they discovered that they could enter this 8th chakra that exists outside of time and expand it around themselves to create a bubble of light, a bubble of timelessness, of infinity, that allowed them to step outside of ordinary time into timelessness, where death could not touch them. And it was within infinity and that they were able to track back along their patient's timeline to discover an incident from their past that might have derailed their destiny and caused soul loss. So from the place of infinity, they were able to travel to the past and recover a person's soul that might have become fragmented, and part of it may have been lost 600 years ago or 1,000 years ago, or maybe at the moment of birth. They were also able to travel into the future and discover a high destiny for themselves or for their village or for their patient. So if you were a shaman that lived on the coast, you had to lead the fishermen the following day to where the fish were going to be, and not to where the fish had been yesterday. So you had to learn to track into the future. If you lived in the mountains and you were a medicine man, you had to lead the hunters to where the buffalo were going to be tomorrow morning, and not get to where there were fresh buffalo prints and say to the hunters, whoops, they were just here an hour ago, because you would lose your job. So the shaman learned how to track into the future, to be able to lead the village to where the buffalo were, to where the fish were. And this is a skill that we all have, because otherwise we end up in our future that was selected by the past, by the momentum of the past, by the high probability that we built up from our past. And that might not necessarily be our highest destiny or our most desirable future or our healthiest future. So one of the great gifts of energy medicine for myself has been the ability to track the highest outcome for my own life. And I'll give you an example of how I was able to use the skill to recover my health. As a medical anthropologist, I have traveled the world. The only places I have not been to have been Antarctica and the North Pole. But I've traveled through most every jungle region in the planet, studying the Aboriginal peoples of these areas. And in many of these lands, I was exposed to parasites and to bacteria that were quite deadly. And a few years ago, 5 years ago, I had begun to feel very, very tired, exhausted. I couldn't walk more than 200 feet without needing to sit down and rest. And my friends were telling me, Alberto, you're just getting old. You're getting older. You have to accept that. But I went in for a medical checkup from head to toe, complete medical exam, Western medicine, because Western medicine is a fantastic diagnostic medicine. And I call my doctors and I asked them, well, what did you find out? And they said to me, Alberto, you better sit down, but you should be dead. And I said to them, well, is that a normal diagnosis? I have never heard of this diagnosis before. And they said to me, we had to put you on a world map because you have parasites that are only found in Egypt and parasites that only come from Indonesia. You have worms in your liver. You've had 5 kinds of hepatitis. You have holes in your heart and you have parasites in your brain. And I said, my God, this is no wonder I don't feel well. And he said, you better come back to the US immediately. I was traveling and teaching. You better come back immediately and check into a hospital and get on a list for a liver transplant because your liver is shot and you might even need a new heart. And I was stunned. I was devastated. And I was with my wife, Marcella, and we were headed towards the Peruvian Amazon, to the headwaters of the Amazon, on a research expedition. So I immediately bought a ticket, an airline ticket, to go back to Miami. And as I'm boarding the flight, I'm saying, what am I doing? Am I mad? Am I going to check into a hospital to get a liver transplant and a heart transplant? But where am I going to find a good brain? So instead, I went to the heart of the Amazon with Marcella to work with the shamans. And the shamans helped me to do a soul retrieval, to recover a part of myself that I had lost at the age of 2. And then I went back to the United States, checked into the hospital, and took the Western medication to kill the parasites and the bugs. And Western medicine is very, very good at killing things. And after a month of medication, I had killed every parasite, every bug, every virus in my body that they could find. But I still had a broken liver, a heart full of holes, and a brain full of dead parasites. And it was then that I did the energy medicine. And through energy medicine, what I did was to detoxify the brain. Because the brain has the blood-brain barrier. It doesn't like for things to get in, and it doesn't allow for too many things to get out. So I had to get these dead parasites out of my brain, and then trigger the production of stem cells in my brain to repair it. So after 4 months, I had grown a new liver, a new heart, and a new brain. And the full recovery process took 2 years. My doctor said to me, Alberto, you will probably never be able to walk very far again. Forget about hiking in the mountains. 2 years after this, I went to Nepal and hiked for 200 kilometers at 12,000 feet altitude because I had grown a new body. What energy medicine allowed me to do was to not only repair my liver, but grow a new one, repair my heart. And I have a brand new heart today. And I have a brain that I'm enjoying quite a bit, and that is not living in brain fog, and with complete clarity. So this is where energy medicine can support Western medicine tremendously. Because we know that we can grow a new body that ages differently and heals differently and that will die differently. And the reason that we know this is because we grew a body once. But this information now is in password protected regions of our DNA because you don't need another 10 fingers or another 10 toes. But if we can hack our biology, if we can break into these password-protected regions, then we can grow a new heart. We can repair the heart. We can repair the liver. Every organ in the body has the ability to repair itself. And the one thing that I like to point out to my students is that there's no one in the planet that is older than 7 years. The oldest person in the planet is 7 years old, because every 7 years you grow an entirely new body. You grow new cells in your skin every 7 days. Every 7 years, every one of your cells in your body is replaced. And even brain cells that do not replicate too easily, through ionic exchange, every atom and every molecule in your body is replaced. Every atom in your brain, every molecule in every brain cell. So the oldest person in the world is 7 years old. And 7 years from now, you can grow a new body that is more resilient, that is smarter, that is healthier than the one you have now. Or you can grow a slightly older and more wrinkled and more tired version of yourself, because you are relying on the default programming. Remember that the default programming says that you're going to live, you're going to get sick, and you're going to die the way that the members of your family did. And when we begin to clear the imprints from our luminous energy field that will allow us to write our own life story and our own health story, then you don't have to be a statistic. Then you can live for however long you were going to live, taking your health with you. Taking your health with you so that your health span equals your lifespan. And this is what our goal is. We don't want to live to be 150 years old and spend the last 50 years of that in bed. We want to be climbing mountains and rappelling off the side of cliffs and hiking and taking our vitality and our humor and our health with us into our later years. Let me show you how to explore your luminous energy field. In the Andes, this is called the Huiracocha. Huiracocha means the source of the sacred. This is where spirit lives within you. And the way that you explore it is like this. Follow me. Bring your hands to your heart in prayer pose and close your eyes and take a couple of deep breaths. Find your breath. And then on an in-breath, begin to bring your hands up into this radiant sun above your head. Imagine a radiant sun, a ball of light. This is your Christ light, your Buddha light above your head. And expand this 8th chakra around you. This 8th chakra is who you were before you were born and who you will be after you die. Expand this 8th chakra around you, enveloping yourself in infinity and timelessness. Expanding your luminous body, creating a bubble of timelessness within the river of time. And then explore your field. Sense this membrane of light. If there are any areas that feel that they are in disrepair, that they're torn, go ahead and mend them and repair them. These are the places where your energy leaks. Explore this bubble of light and expand it. Push it out a little further. Push it out even more so that it connects with all of nature, with the rivers, with the trees around you. And now bring your hands to your heart chakra without touching the body and feel that chakra. This is another energy system. Feel that great drummer of the heart, pulsing and beating. But feel it outside your skin, without touching. 20 centimeters away, 8 inches away from your skin. And now bring your hands down to your second chakra, your belly chakra, right below your belly button. And breathe deeply into that chakra. And sense the spinning of that chakra. Every chakra spins with its own speed in this direction. Feel it spinning as if you were placing your hand in a whirlpool of water. And now bring it to your crown chakra at the very top of your head. This is where the energies of heaven come into you, meeting the energies of earth that come up through your first chakra. This is your luminous energy field. This is who you will be after you die. When you die, each of your 7 chakras uploads its information into your 8th chakra. And your 8th chakra is shaped like a luminous egg, like a radiant golden egg that has all the information within it. How you lived, who you hurt, who hurt you, the dramas that you experienced in your life, the love that you shared, the love that you felt, the beauty that you brought to the world. And this 8th chakra will then go and select the next family that you will be born into. It will be attracted to the people, the parents. In fact, it will even bring 2 people together for a single night of love in order for you to be born through them, so that you can continue your growth. And the moment that you are conceived, this 8th chakra begins to download this information into the 7 chakras of the growing body, guiding the growth of that body. And at the moment of your birth, the download is complete. And you will continue to create the opportunities for suffering or for healing that you created in your previous life. And now let's close our Viracocha. Let's gather the energy of this radiant sun above your head, a ball of light above your head, and feel it. And bringing it into your body, healing, renewing, reinforming your physical body from that source that informs all of life. So the shamans understood that we have 2 natures. One of our natures is light, which is our luminous energy field, and it's the field. And the other part of our nature is light that is very tightly bound into matter, and that's the physical body. And this is what physicists also discovered about 100 years ago. They discovered that the electron has a field, it's a field, but it can also manifest as a particle. So we have a field state, which is our energy field, and our body is the particle state. And when you die, you will leave your particle state and you will only be in your field state. And the task of the shamans of old was to discover how they could take their consciousness with them when they left their particle state and returned to the field. Because remember that the particle state is here, is that you are someone, somewhere here in your body. And they asked themselves, will I still be someone when I'm everywhere? Because the field is everywhere. And this is the task of the master shamans, is to take their consciousness with them beyond death so that they know who they are. Their experience of who they are cannot be affected by anything, not even by death. So they were masters at understanding the nature of energy, and they understood that creation, that the Great Spirit created the universe in 4 levels, that there are 4 levels of creation, each one of them subtler and closer to light. And the shamans called these 4 levels by the names of the 4 great power animals: the level of serpent, the level of jaguar, the level of hummingbird, and the level of eagle. So the very first level of serpent is the level of the body, the physical body, of light very tightly bound into matter. And the language of this level is chemical, biochemical, the chemical processes that happen in the body. And then they understood that the body is informed by the mind, almost like these Russian dolls that nest inside each other. They understood that the level of serpent of the body was informed by the level of jaguar of the mind. That these were like these Russian dolls that nest inside each other. That the mind organized the body to create psychosomatic health or disease. And the level of the mind was the level of jaguar, the level of our feelings, of our emotions. That our emotions manifest in the body and create health or create illness. Above that was the level of hummingbird. And the level of hummingbird was the level of the sacred, was the level of the soul. And they understood that the soul informed the mind, that then informed the body. And the language of the soul was the language of poetry, of images, of fire, of ceremonies. The language of jaguar was the language of feelings, of words. And the language of the body was chemical and physical. And they learned to master each one of these languages. So for example, at the level of hummingbird, of images, we know that what we install in our reality through visualization and through imagery is very powerful. We know that through visualization, you can master a sport, you can relax. But we also know that at the level of jaguar, we can use affirmations. And affirmations are saying, I am healthier, I am stronger every day. But it takes 10,000 affirmations. Whereas at the level of hummingbird, it only takes 2 or 3 visualizations. It's much more powerful to perfect your tennis swing or to rehearse a sport. When you visualize it 2 or 3 times, it's extraordinarily powerful. The level above it, which is the level of spirit, the level of ego, when you install that energetically, you only have to do it once. And the language of the level of ego is energy. This is the level of spirit. And we know that spirit informs the soul, that informs the mind, that informs the body. And the difference between the spirit and the soul is that we each have an individual soul. But there's only one spirit. Spirit is singular. There's only one of us in spirit. Spirit informs the soul, that informs the mind, that informs the body. And our Western technologies, our sciences, are fantastic at working at the level of the body. Surgically, at building bridges, we're masters of creation at the physical level. At the level of mind, it gets a little bit more confusing. Our psychologies are not that good. But we also understand the mind very well through our philosophies. At the level of the soul, we don't really speak that language very well in the West. It's only the great poets like Rumi or Hildegard of Bingen. But the shamans knew that ceremony and rituals happen at the level of the soul. That through ceremony, through prayer, through forgiveness, we can accomplish a tremendous amount. Through visualization, through dreaming the world into being, through visualizing your health, it can be extraordinarily powerful. And of course, at the level of ego, of spirit, we don't even know the language of energy. Even in our modern sciences of physics, we're just now beginning to understand the side of the equation of energy. When Einstein discovered that E equals mc squared, E is equal to energy equals m matter times c, the velocity of light, squared, he, in the simple formula, synthesized all of creation. And our sciences have been focusing on the M part of the equation, on matter. The shamanic sciences have been focusing on the E part of the equation, on energy. And what the shaman does is to dance on top of the equal sign of this extraordinary equation, able to bring things from the world of energy into the world of matter and form, or to help people that have passed away go from the world of physical form back to the world of energy and spirit. This is the mastery of the old medicine, of the ancient medicine. The shamans understood that creation happened at these four levels: of serpent of the body, of jaguar of the mind, of hummingbird of the soul, and of eagle of the spirit. And they learned the language of each of these realms and were able to solve every problem that came to them, every problem that every one of their patients had, not at the level of serpent, but at the level of eagle. They understood that there was a spiritual solution to every situation and every problem that walked in through your door. They were masters of the energy medicine, but they also understood how to work at the level of the soul. The level of the soul required that you design a sacred map for your life, that you became a cartographer where you could design a map for a sacred journey in your life. And if you did not design a sacred journey for yourself, you would end up repeating the journey that your parents had taken, or getting a job until you were 60, retiring, and then dying. You had to come up with an interesting map that allowed you to explore reality. But even more important than exploring reality, this map offered you the possibility of co-creating reality, of taking part in the process of creating reality itself. And the shamans called this dreaming the world into being. Remembering, understanding that if they did not dream their world into being, that they would have to settle for the nightmare that had been dreamt by others. To do this, you had to master these four levels of creation, knowing the ways of serpent, knowing the ways of jaguar, knowing the ways of hummingbird, and knowing the ways of eagle. There are 4 healing interventions that are practiced in shamanic energy medicine. Let me take you through these interventions. The very first one is the illumination process. The illumination process consists of clearing the imprints of disease from your luminous energy field, finding the imprints and erasing them and overwriting them with light. Now, when we study DNA and genetics, we sometimes believe that our genetic destiny cannot be changed, that we are the product of our genes, and that our genes, in effect, are a form of a death sentence that is handed down to us from our parents and that we will pass on to our children. But today, cutting-edge science is discovering that our destiny and our health is only 10% of our genes. And the other 90% are our dreams, our ability to dream our health into being, the foods that we eat, the beliefs that we have, that this will modify your genetic expression. And this is known as the science of epigenetics. Epigenetics means more than your genes. Now, the shamans of old discovered this as well. This is not new. We have been modifying our genetic expression with our diet for 3 million years. But they discovered that we could modify our genes, the expression of our genes, switching on more than 500 genes that create health, and silencing more than 200 genes that create disease by clearing the imprints in the luminous energy field. By debugging the software, if we could upgrade the software, we did not have to repeat the illnesses of our family. And these illnesses in the Amazon are known as generational curses that are passed down from mother to daughter, father to son. So the illumination process clears the slate. It gives you the opportunity to write the story of your health and to write the story of your life. The illumination process allows you to clean the sludge at the bottom of each one of the chakras, the sludge and stale energy that will manifest itself as disease. You clear out the sludge and you reinform that chakra with light. And then that information is distributed throughout your field and the quality of the field is upgraded. The illumination process, like its name says, consists of enlightening your field, of lightening up your field, of taking the heavy energies out of the field so that the body can function in optimal form. The next intervention is the extraction process. In the West, we believe that all of the energies that we experience belong to us. The shamans know that you can be affected by energies directed to you by others. That when others direct anger or greed or hatred or envy, jealousy, that these energies are very toxic, and if they penetrate your field, can embed themselves in your body and can trigger disease, either physical disease or emotional and mental disease. So they discovered how to extract these energies, how to clear the field from these intrusive energies, and occasionally from entities that would enter into your field. I remember when my book, Shaman, Healer, Sage, was being released in New York, the publisher invited me to speak to the top salespeople, the 20 top salespeople that sold books to the big chains. And I had 10 minutes, and there were a number of authors presenting, and my 10 minutes were right after lunch, and nobody was interested in hearing about shamans or healing. And I'm giving my talk, and this man walks into the room in a three-piece suit, and he raises his hand, and he speaks to the group, not to me. And he says to them, "You've all known me for many, many years, and you know that I've been an alcoholic for the last 10 years of my life. I've had trouble with alcohol. And I went to see one of Dr. Villoldo's graduates, and I had 3 sessions with her, and that was 6 months ago, and I've not had a drop of alcohol since, and my cravings are all gone. This really works." And he turns around and he leaves. And later I find out that he's one of the heads of the publishing company. And suddenly everybody is interested because a lot of people in New York in publishing have a problem with alcohol. Now, addictions are very difficult to treat. So as soon as my talk is done, I call my graduate and I ask her, "What did you do?" And she says to me, well, this man came to my office in his limo. He stepped out of the limousine, walked into my office, and walking in right behind him was his father's spirit. His father had died 10 years before and had been an alcoholic his entire life. And as soon as the father died, he had become attached to his son, who had begun drinking 10 years before. And I asked my graduate, what did you do? And she said to me, I helped him to go back home. I helped his father to die. His father was caught between the worlds, not knowing that he had died in a nightmare that he couldn't wake up from. So she said, I helped him to go back home, so he is at peace now. And as soon as this intrusive entity, his dad, was gone, this man was able to stop drinking. Now, addictions are very complex, and not every case of addiction is due to an intrusive entity. But this is far more common than we like to think, particularly today when people do not know how to die consciously, when we have forgotten the great death rites. So the extraction process, very, very powerful. You can accomplish in one session extracting an intrusive entity, grandma, a loved one who died without saying their I love yous and their goodbyes. You can help the dead and you can help the living. And you can accomplish in 1 or 2 sessions what can take years to do in psychotherapy. The next process is the soul retrieval process. In soul retrieval, we journey to the past to discover a trauma or an incident that derailed your client's destiny. And when we discover this incident that might have happened 2,000 years ago, perhaps they were killed in battle 2,000 years ago, then you can coax that soul part, you can invite that soul part to come back. You have to let it know that it's okay, that it's going to be safe. And you retrieve that quanta of energy from the past and you offer it to your patient or to your client. And then the healing is tremendously accelerated. And what happens is that we no longer need to keep reincarnating with that person that killed us 2,000 years ago or that we tortured in a former lifetime. We don't have to keep being born with them, dating them, marrying them, or working for them. We become free of that karmic loop. Soul retrieval has to do with recovering a part of our essential self. When that part of ourselves was lost, we lose our destiny. And then we fall into the grip of fate. And fate is preordained for us. Destiny we can select. Fate is fatal, it's deadly. It's not original, it's not creative, it's not inspired. When we recover our lost soul parts, we become whole. And the shaman journeys on the client's behalf and is able to coax to bring back the soul part and offer it to their client. And then in the next few weeks and months, as this soul part integrates, that person's life changes dramatically. Soul retrieval. In the same way that we do soul retrieval, as you develop mastery of the skill, you learn to also journey into the future to recover a desired destiny for yourself, for your business, for your village, for your own life. So soul retrieval and destiny retrieval are very closely connected to each other. One of them happens towards the past, the other one towards the future. And the fourth strategy, healing technique of the shamans are the great death rites. The death rites are the great rites of passage, and we have forgotten them in the West. We are delighted when we have a new baby and when we bring someone into the world, but we do not know how to say goodbye to those that are leaving it. And there's no greater gift that you could give to a loved one, perhaps even the person that brought you into this world, than to help them to return to the world of spirit gracefully, painlessly, and consciously. This is such a valuable skill, and you will have the chance to use it because the mortality rate in the world is still 100%. And the day that you pass, you're going to want to be sure that whoever is holding your hand and telling you that they love you also knows how to set the luminous body free so that it can return joyously back to the world of spirit. This is such an extraordinary technique and is so needed today. But we don't die only once. We don't die at the end of our lives only. We die many times during the course of our lives. We have 9 lives, in effect, like the cats do, metaphorically. So we go through these deaths of who we have been so we can be born as a new person within this life. And at these times, the death rites can be extraordinarily valuable as well. We can allow an old self to pass away, not to heal it, not to fix it, but we're complete when we finish a relationship or a marriage or a stage in our lives. We need to let the old die so that the new can be born gracefully. And these times, the death rites can also be extraordinarily valuable because they are the great rites of passage. So these are the 4 core healing strategies. But the shaman also works with a lineage. The shaman is connected to a lineage of medicine men and women that go back to the very beginning of time. The minute that you connect to this lineage, that you receive the rites of initiation that connect you to this lineage, you're never alone again. You're able to hear the voices of the ancient ones in the wind. You're able to remember stories that are yours, but that you never lived. You begin to remember the old stories that have been told around the fire for thousands of years. And you begin to remember the ancient wisdom. You become part of a living lineage. You become a carrier of this lineage into the future so that we can dream a world into being that our children's children can be born into. And this is how the shaman dreams the future all the time. Through the act of dreaming a world of peace, a world of beauty, a world of health, beginning by dreaming peace and beauty and health for themselves, for their families, and for their loved ones. I invite you to join me in this course where you will get the basic training of shamanic energy medicine. This is not information only. This course is rich in energy practices, in meditations, where you will be able to journey back to the moment of your conception and reselect your genetic destiny, where you will be able to learn the basics of the illumination process, of upgrading the quality of your luminous energy field. You will learn the skills where you can help a loved one to die. These are practical exercises that you can take home. The information you can read in a book, but the shamanic practices are founded on the experiences of infinity. And we invite you to come and try this out for yourself. Remember that we are a living experiment, and the only way you can find out about the journey beyond death, about the luminous nature of reality, is by experiencing it yourself. Thank you.